Onto our final story now. China offered support for Russia as Moscow is seeking to shore up the ruble amid a currency crisis in that country. The Chinese Commerce Minister Gao Hucheng says expanding a currency swap between Moscow and Beijing and making increased use of the yuan for bilateral trade would significantly aid Russia. Also, Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that China will provide help if needed and is confident that Russia can overcome its economic difficulties. Russia's currency, the ruble, has lost half of its value against the dollar due to worries over the country's economy, which has been hit by free-falling oil prices and sanctions. China and Russia signed a 3-year currency swap line of 150 billion yuan in October. Beijing is promoting the yuan as an alternative to the dollar for global trade and finance. Mike Billington from the Asia Desk at the Executive Intelligence Review joins us from Leesburg. Mike Billington, I think the U.S. has pushed Russia to the point of no return when it comes to at least this particular relationship with China. What's your impression of this all?
Oh, there's no question. In fact, this is extremely important because the motivation for the U.S.-NATO threat of war on Russia, which ostensibly is over Ukraine, actually has nothing to do with Ukraine whatsoever. It has to do with the fact that the Western financial system is in a state of absolute collapse. They're panicked. And when they look at the incredible developments coming from the BRICS nations, largely based on the very close alliance between Russia, China, and India, they are in a state of panic, and they want to destroy that relationship by any means they can, and including war. If they cannot force Putin to back down and China to back down on things like the open threat from their anti-ballistic missile system, moving NATO up to the border, and these economic sanctions. And I'm sure you hear Mr. Obama daily say, see, we're destroying Russia. They're going bankrupt. We're succeeding in capital flight and so forth. Well, the fact is, these sanctions are having far more damage on Europe, as the German leaders, not Mrs. Merkel, but other top German leaders, are saying as loudly as they can, these sanctions are just further destroying an already collapsing Europe. And the Russians are seeing this, in a sense, as a crisis, but one which has a silver lining, which is that they are both turning to their true friends in Russia, in China, in South America, in Africa, virtually the entire world outside of the transatlantic nations. And they are building up their own military and economic capacities in order to counter the sanctions that are being imposed from the West and the isolation being imposed upon them. They are also aware that people in the West are threatening to pull them out of the SWIFT system, which is the accounting system which allows people to do transactions with the West. And in fact, they tested just the day before yesterday, I believe, their own SWIFT system. But this would be considered not only an act of war, but an open act of regime change. And Mr. Putin has said clearly that this is an effort at regime change, and the Chinese have now stated very, very clearly that they will use their resources to help Russia, who is in fact committed to building the world. They're signing nuclear deals with India, with South Africa. They're building nuclear power plants. They're helping China in China's explosive development of rail, water infrastructure. So this is a war between the insane, collapsing Western financial system, which is willing to wage war against the BRICS nations, and which, in fact, Russia and China are correctly not backing down and are standing together for humanity, for the common aims of mankind, against the insanity coming from Washington and London.
Thank you very much. Mike Billington from the Asia Desk at the Executive Intelligence Review talking to us there from Leesburg.